Okay, this serves as a background to the housing discussion today. Now, housing accounts for more than 70% of land use in most cities and determines urban form and densities, also providing employment and contributing to growth. Okay, providing employment throughout the life cycle of the housing development, from the construction until the occupation stage, whereby construction is easy enough to understand. You need people to build the housing. Sorry, I need to mute. Okay, to build the housing units. But once people move into their houses, okay, there needs to be a maintenance and management of the houses, especially in city areas, whereby we build vertically, right? Strata housing. So the strata housing in most countries, okay, there are strata regulations that determine or that provides for proper management and maintenance of the strata units. Not just Malaysia, whereby we have the Strata Management Act 2013, but also more popularly in countries like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like Australia, South Africa, for instance. So and many other countries, USA, USA, European countries. But the countries that we look up to for their strata laws are Hong Kong, Singapore, South Africa, and Australia. Okay, 4 countries. Anyway, employment from construction until occupation, and contributing to growth. Growth in the sense that the increase in property values can contribute to economic growth. Okay, or even the construction industry, which is dominated by housing. Can contribute, can determine the economic growth level of the country. So this is according to UN Habitat 2016. Therefore, it says current housing policies can determine the sustainability of cities. Okay, the current one can somehow predict, okay, the sustainability of the cities. Okay. Then, okay, the need for adequate and affordable housing. Okay, cukup dan affordable is mampu milik. Now, I have a bone to pick with this translation of affordable housing. In Malaysia, we translate affordable housing as mampu milik. Hanafi knows my problem with this translation of affordable housing. Affordable housing, rumah mampu milik, in other countries, there's no such what do you call it, transliteration. There's no such thing that affordability must only refer to houses for sale. Can also refers to houses that are affordable for rent. Okay, but only in Malaysia we call affordable housing as rumah mampu milik. Okay, so I don't know. It has policy implications actually. The way we think about affordable housing in Malaysia, okay, has been largely biased towards the ability to purchase the houses. Anyway, world's urban population increased from 2.6 billion, okay, which is 45% of total in 1995, to 4.2 billion, almost double, 55% of total in 2018. Okay. With urban population increase, there is a corresponding increase in housing demand in cities. 1.2 billion people live in substandard housing, whereby 93% of adults do not have access to formal housing finance. Okay, the main problem in cities all over the world is most of the adults, the working population, okay, they don't have jobs that make them credit worthy, or they don't have the proper documentations when they want to apply for housing loan, for instance. Maybe people from the service industry, like waitresses, or or fishermen or whatever, or farmers kan, or in cities mana ada farmers, but you know, service industries yang with no proper employment documents that can prove their income security that can lead to approval of their housing loan. So this comprises about this 1.2 billion people, of which about 93% has no access to formal housing finance. So if they cannot apply, or they cannot apply for housing finance, they will not be able to purchase a house, because we know that purchasing a house involves a large amount of money, right? Normally we buy a house using housing loan. Okay, so if these people cannot apply for housing loan, that means that in return they cannot purchase housing. So what happens then? What happens then is they live in slum areas. They be in informal housing settlements. So in some cases, housing supply could not match housing demand. For instance, South Asia recorded housing shortfall of 38 million in 2016. Okay, that's a lot, 38 million, 38 households, 38 million households. However, as housing became increasingly commodified, there are issues regarding the provision of housing that is affordable for all income segments. So the commodification of housing is when you think of housing as a good, as a product, and not as a basic human right or a basic need. So when you see housing as a normal good that you can trade, that you can buy and you can later sell for a profit, kan? So that is when you see housing as a commodity, and the process is known as commodification of housing. So when housing commodification is allowed in any countries without any control from the government, you have speculators. You have people who flip houses. For instance, you buy and then on paper, then you sell to other parties. So what happens then is the prices of housing will escalate, will be beyond the reach of normal people because of these speculative activities. Okay? So that is when housing becomes increasingly unaffordable. Okay, one reason is this one, the commodification of housing. Key trends with respect to the provision of adequate housing. Okay, you see housing, the decline of housing as a political priority despite increasing demand. Now the government has moved away from the provision of housing or provision of at least direct provision. So the government now is more interested in enabling or assuming a facilitative role rather than direct provider of housing, because housing can form a big amount of government budget, government budget allocation. So the government said that due to the new ways of new ways of operating, or new ways of doing things. The government has promoted privatization, PPPs in housing rather than being a direct provider. Direct provider means to build themselves. So now, and it's no longer a political priority. Inequality, focus on home ownership, speculation, and neglect of rental housing. This is exactly my point just now. When when in the case of our country, Malaysia, okay, it is not until the second national housing policy that I see this word, the promotion of some policy that promotes rental housing or what they call tenure diversity. Before that, it's all about promoting home ownership among the people. First, it was promoting home ownership among the low-income groups. Then we move forward in the 1990s, 2000s, it's promoting home ownership, or trying to help the middle class, the medium income group, okay, to access home ownership. They established Prima, they established Romawi, and so on, to help the middle income, low middle income, not really, because we have a large range. We have the low middle, we have the high middle income. So helping the low middle income people to access home ownership. Okay. Increasing reliance on the private sector. This is related to this one just now. Okay, now the government is, like I said, assumes a more facilitative role as the facilitator, focusing on the regulations rather than direct provision. Affordability is increasingly an elusive concept. So we say affordable, but to whom? Housing that is affordable to certain groups of the population may not be affordable to other groups of the population. Okay? And if we define, if we lump together, for instance, low-income groups into one category, within the low-income groups, there are different types of low-income people or low-income subgroups. Okay? We have, for instance, single mothers, okay, under the low-income groups, single-parent household. We have income. We have people with disability, okay, being on the low-income household, but different from the single mother just now, single mother with kids just now. Okay? Other countries have made this distinction within the income level, okay? Within the income level for the housing consumer groups. Okay, for instance, the middle income, they can subdivide into single family household or dual family household or multiple generational household, for instance. What else? Single mother just now, people with disability, so many subcategories under the big category. Okay, so if you lump together all the groups under one heading or under one group, sometimes the policy may not be effective. It may overshoot or it may undershoot because it doesn't quite reach the intended targets. Know your target first before you roll out any policy. So you cannot simply issue any policy top down without understanding the market or the subgroup or the group that you are trying to help. Land administration and management in terms of land laws and what do you call it? Land titles. Okay, in some countries, the land titling system is still weak, and not as in Malaysia. Malaysia, we have the torrent system whereby we use the land title to prove ownership. Okay? In some countries, for instance, countries like this is my own personal opinion. Okay, not opinion, my personal experience. Okay, because we take our students overseas, our final year students overseas, okay, for their integrated project. Okay, so we can see the land administration system for between different countries, especially in the Southeast Asia or South Asia region. Okay, we've been to China, we've been to Hong Kong, we've been to China where? Philippines, we've been to Vietnam, we've been to Jakarta, Indonesia. So we can see that in some of the countries that we visited, okay, there's still some weaknesses in their land titling system. Vietnam, for instance, I'm not. This is just my personal experience, okay. And we went to the last time we went to Vietnam was in 2013. So maybe things have improved since then, okay. 2013, 2015, I don't remember. But when we went there, we had problems, okay, in conducting title search because their system is not like us. Their system is not like us. They don't use the torrent system like us, for instance. So there's there will be problems like multiple claims on the same property because because of the records that they keep may not be updated. Torrent system is different. Torrent system is whatever is in the office. Okay, the registrar document of title, RDT, is what you hold. Okay, that is the final evidence of the right of the ownership of the who are the owners, what's the land area, and things like that. Okay, so there's a high element of certainty. Okay? In countries that use the torrent system of land administration, okay, as compared to countries that use, for instance, the BIT system, okay, in their land administration. Migration. Okay, migration, we talk about the borderless world nowadays, okay, where people can move from one country to another. Migration, there are positives and negatives for the housing supply. Okay, positives as in when the housing demand can be maintained at a high level, then the housing market will enjoy a good boom or a good growth. But at the same time, it will introduce a shortage in supply. And also, okay, something that happened in most major cities in the world, okay, the migration. So migration occurs among the low income, also the high income people, the high net income individuals. Okay, so in some countries, when the developers anticipate these expats with high income to come into their country, they tend to build high-end properties in major cities. So that will price out the local people from owning housing, because the developers they calculate the prices according to what these outsiders can afford, not what the local people can afford. It's not just in Malaysia. I've been reading reports in Vancouver, in Auckland, okay, in Melbourne, okay, when the developers build according to the demand from expatriates coming in. Climate change and disasters. Okay, we have this problem now. Provision of adequate housing when the land supply is slowly being reduced due to the rise in water level, seawater level. Okay, so what happens then? Less land to build on, or existing housing becomes unsafe. So it will reduce, okay, the number of housing in that area or in that city. Now, the issue number one is mismatch of housing. So I think there's 4 issues that I managed to find. Okay, the issue 1 is mismatch. Wrong location, wrong price range, wrong products. Wrong location, wrong price range, wrong products. Normally occurs when there's developer-led development trends. The developer determines the market. So in Malaysia, the wrong location, wrong price, wrong products is high-rise, high-end, both in city centers and the suburban areas in Kajang. Okay, Kajang. Kajang. Okay, for foreign students, for foreign students from China who cannot imagine what is Kajang. It's a suburban city, suburban town, located about 1 hour from the city center, from KL. Okay, the price there is comparable to the price around the city fringe, the KL city fringe. Okay, which is, people say, why should I buy a high price condo in Kajang when I can get a similar one at the city fringe, which is closer to KL with better rentability. If I want to do it, if I want to purchase for investment. Okay, so the condos in Kajang now, the high-end condos in Kajang, okay, we can see that there's a lot of vacancies there. People who bought it for investment, who intended to use it for Airbnb and so on, okay, are not able to rent out the condo units because people don't want to go to Kajang. There's no attraction there besides the satay Kajang. Anyway, they say it's better for them if I want to rent, if I want to have a getaway lah. So it's better for me to stay within KL, and then spend my weekend, in the city area where there's a lot of entertainment, a lot of eateries, a lot of activities that I can do in the city center rather than Ajang. Now, in China, okay, mismatch just now. Okay, another example is ghost cities. So if you Google, you'll find some examples of the ghost cities. Okay, there is districts built in the suburban region of functioning cities to provide accommodation for a growing urban population. Okay, there's a lot of criticism about this. That the government, or the normally it's the government actually, normally built by the government. Now the districts built in the suburban region. So there's a lot of criticism that says that they overbuilt, or they miscalculated the demand for housing. So that's why there's a lot of units being unsold or being unoccupied because of lack of demand in those areas. But there's another side to the story. Okay, some literature counter back this criticism. Okay, saying that the situation of ghost cities is usually temporary, a temporary phenomenon. It takes time for any cities to be vibrant. Okay, so in some cases it would take several years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or whatever. Okay, for instance, the city of, this is China, right? But another example that I can think of now in Korea is this smart city Songdo. Very nice city, gleaming, very nice city, smart city, being branded as a smart city. During the first few years of its completion, nobody wants to live there because they said the prices are quite high, better to live in Seoul or in other cities in Korea. But now, okay, after 10 or 7 or whatever years, okay, it's a booming city. Okay, it's a vibrant city. Property prices have increased. Okay, so it takes time for a new city to pick up the pace, to be vibrant. Okay, so there's two ways to look at it. So actually, if we did a search, it's still not there. I mean, the vibrancy is still not seen. But maybe give them a few more years. Maybe the those cities in China will show a turnaround, and then this statement will be true. Symptoms include property overhang, abandoned projects, and empty completed units. By the way, I've got about 6 minutes on the clock. Okay, so after this, like I said, just click on the same link as before, as I provided this morning. I think we'll be able to recycle the link for this lecture. So you don't have, there's no waiting time. Just you will this Zoom will end. Click on the same link. We will be on without smoothly, without any pause. Okay. Anyway, symptoms or overhang. Isn't this what's happening in Malaysia? Overhang because of this mismatch. Okay. Property overhang in major cities in Malaysia, especially Johor, kan? Johor, KL, Selangor. Okay. Abandoned projects and empty completed units. There is also a term that they use to describe these empty completed units. Dark condo, they call it. Dark condo. When at night, okay, if there's a block of condominium, you can see only 1 or 2 units being lighted up. The rest of the condo is dark. So dark condo phenomenon, they call it. Dark condo symptom, something like that. So that is in Johor. Johor a lot. Dangabe one. Wow. Okay, distribution. Wait. So this is the some of the examples of unsold completed condo and the property overhang in Malaysia. You can see there, Selangor. This was in 2019, Q2. I haven't updated this one, okay, but this was the last time when I made this slide. Okay, 71%. In Selangor, Penang, 66%. Price range unsold, less than 600,000. But the high end, the above 600,000, we can see there. Johor again, this one, 70%. This is along the Danga Bay. Okay. Then we have the wilayah, 69%. You can see examples in Klang, the Boss. This one, if you go along the Federal Highway, I think you can see this along the side of the road and coming into Klang. So this is an example of abandoned residential complexes in Chenggong district in Yunnan. Yeah. Mismatch. Issue number 2 is unaffordability. So we have what is now termed global housing crisis, whereby there's unaffordability to both buy and rent in other countries, but not in Malaysia, not yet. Our problem now is this one, unaffordability to buy. We still can afford rent. Now, the focus has been more on price, but rents in most cities have increased, while income stays stagnant or decreases. The causes of high price or rent, one, unmet demand, whereby employment opportunities in cities and you have population growth. So increase in demand or demand that cannot be met with supply. And then we have the limited supply, whereby there's restrictions in terms of land supply, regulations. The restrictions in land supply are physical and non-physical. So the physical side is like this, restrictions to build because of the geography of the city, because maybe there's a lot of hilly areas. Hong Kong, for instance, Hong Kong, topography, but regulations as well. Okay, in the UK, for instance, they have the green belt, green belt planning punya law, which prohibits them to build in a ring of greenfield area termed as green belt. So you cannot build there. So what happens is there's a limitation of land supply to build on. Okay, so these situations will lead to high price or rent because of limited supply of housing. NIMBYs not in my backyard. When people want to, people means developer wants to develop. There will be when there's a plan to develop housing, for instance, low income housing. Some local population will protest because they are afraid that the low cost housing will bring down the value of their neighborhood. Okay, not in my backyard. Okay, you can build low income housing, but not here, another district. Competition from other users, so competition from the office sector, for instance, or retail, for instance, or industrial user, for instance, or even agri, for instance. So we can see here, okay, I have 1 minute. The most and least affordable major markets. So we can see Hong Kong is top of the list, most unaffordable. Right? Most unaffordable is least affordable. Okay, and this is when they compare with land regulation just now, which restricts land supply. Okay, you can see here Hong Kong still tops. Still stops. Why? Why is it? Why is the restricted land supply, housing supply is linked to land regulation in Hong Kong, because of the fact that Hong Kong regulation pertaining to high land